All right, so next fight I want to talk about is this fight that's going down with Anderson Silva versus Jake Paul. Sorry, I'm still a little sick, still a little tired. That's why I'm doing these videos in the bed, and I'm not gonna edit them or nothing. So we're gonna keep it raw dog and keep it pushing. So this is kind of just a weird situation for Jake Paul, just because Jake Paul's in a peculiar situation where he's just running out of viable options. The problem with Jake Paul is that he did something that few celebrities can do, and that is he has gone what I like to call full asshole. Yep, he's full asshole. He's a complete arrogant, complete egotistical, complete like, superficial, materialistic, unequivocal, just he's just an asshole. So because he's an asshole, he doesn't really have a lot of redeemable qualities about him. So unlike his brother, Logan Paul, who actually does have redeemable qualities about him, who actually is like very multi-talented when it comes to like things, who actually is I would say a better entertainer than Jake Paul, who actually is growing with his audience, so he's more introspective, and he has like his podcast. It seems that Logan or Jake Paul is he's kind of the opposite of that. Like, he's always been kind of in his brother's shadow, but the reason why he was able to be so successful is because he pretty much appealed to very low tier thinking fans, which are essentially children. And since he's been doing this for maybe like 5-6 years now, the problem with that is that the fact is, as the children get older and your audience starts to get older, as you start to get older, you can really only go full asshole and like appeal to children. If you're very young looking yourself, at a certain point they're gonna stop watching you because they're gonna, look at you and think that it's stupid. Because he's been doing this for like what, 6-7 years now. That's a long time. Like, you just think it only takes 4 years for a kid to go from a freshman in high school to a senior. So a lot of the kids who started watching him when they were in middle school, or they were like freshmen, they're in college now, and they might think a lot of stuff that he's doing is just stupid. So he's at a crossroads where the only way he can pretty much sustain his fan base, just because he's such an asshole and he doesn't really have any other like desirable characteristics or any redeemable qualities, is that if he keeps winning in combat sports. Because in combat sports, just like Mike Tyson when he was younger, and he used to say crazy wild stuff. Or you see people like Floyd Mayweather, he plays the villain a lot, or Conor McGregor, or Ronda Rousey. You can go full asshole in combat sports and just be a complete asshole. So there's really only three ways you can go full asshole and have a fan base. You can either have kids be your fan base, because kids don't care. You could either be so talented at whatever you're doing that people have to respect you, like Floyd Mayweather, like Conor McGregor, like Ronda Rousey when they were having their runs, and Floyd Mayweather, he's still having his run because there's still so many people watching him to see him lose, and he's not gonna lose. It's just too late. He's just gonna retire undefeated. It just is what it is. Or you have to be attached to some type of political ideology or bigger ideology, i.e. someone like Kobe Covington. Kobe Covington's gone full asshole. He's a complete asshole, but he believes in that MAGA Trump shit, which honestly, I don't even think he 100% believes it. He just says it because it's very good marketing, because, over 70 million people voted for Trump. So if he attaches himself to that ideology, even if he doesn't 100% believe it, even if he's an asshole, even if he loses, right, then people can still say, well, at least he represents these beliefs that I believe in. At least he's being an asshole for a bigger cause. Whether it's actually genuine or not, I don't know. I honestly don't think it is, because the man breaks character oftentimes, and you see that he's not nearly as big of an asshole as he says he is. He was just a very talented fighter who got into the UFC, and the UFC's filled, or combat sports and sports in general are filled with a lot of ignorant people who just can't appreciate talent for just being talent, just like people don't appreciate people like Demetrius Johnson and stuff. They want to have the drama to go along with it. They want the personality to go along with it. So he became that personality, used that niche to propel his career and to get a hardcore fan base. But Jake Paul doesn't have that. The kids who were his fan base are getting older. They just see him as an asshole. A lot of them want him to lose. When he was in the fight with Tyron Woodley, and Tyron Woodley looked like he got a good shot and like maybe dazed or hurt Jake Paul. I don't know if he was dazed, but people were cheering, and that was in Jake Paul's hometown, and this was a pro Jake Paul crowd. Just because when you play that character, you're only good. You can only keep that up is if you're winning, if you go full asshole. Same thing with Conor McGregor. Everyone loved Conor McGregor when he was on top. As soon as he got beat, he's a meme. Everybody's going to make fun of him. There are so many people I knew who were Conor McGregor fans, and then as soon as he started losing, they just turned on him. They're like, oh, he just, like, some of it was valid criticism, but a lot of it was just like, he's been doing that. Like, oh, he's just kind of a rude, like, prick. I used to think he was funny, but now he's just getting out of hand. I'm like, he's been out of hand. What are you talking about? He's been unhinged. That was a part of his brand. So, and with Ronda Rousey was becoming an arrogant, like, piece of shit asshole. And then she started to lose, and then, like, the fans turned on her really quick when she got knocked out by Holly Holmes, because people don't really like people like that. They really don't. You know, like Floyd Mayweather said it best, people will pay to watch you win, and there's some people that pay to watch you lose, but they all pay in the end. So it is very good at marketing, but he just put himself in a position where as soon as he loses, people are going to turn on him. And the thing that I think that sucks for him about that is that even though he's being very careful about his opponents, he's choosing guys like Tyron Woodley, who aren't the best strikers in the world and are pretty much smaller than him, just because Tyron Woodley's 5'9". You know, Jake Paul is 6 foot. Once he rehydrates, he comes in at like 190 pounds. Once he rehydrates, he's well over 200 pounds. So he's pretty much beating on a smaller guy. And, you know, people like Ben Askren is an awful striker. He's never been good at striking. So he's picking his opponents. These are picking opponents who have very little boxing skill, or they have like either little to no experience in boxing. And I'm not saying that Tyron Woodley is a bad fighter, or Ben Askren is a bad fighter per se, but as far as being confined into the sport of boxing and in this particular discipline, which is boxing, they're just not good. They're just not. And they're not beating any professional boxer that's within like the top 50 of any weight class that they were campaigning in. And they damn sure aren't going to go up and beat guys who are kind of in those similar weight classes to where they were when they fought Jake Paul, that are actually like really good, like Canelo Alvarez, David Benavidez, Caleb Plant, Artur Beterbiev, Zupita, Bivol. Like, especially someone like Artur Beterbiev. If Artur Beterbiev was to get in the ring with any of those guys, that man's a motherfucking demon. He's a motherfucking demon. He would beat Jake Paul. He would beat Jake Paul, Tyron Woodley, and Ben Askren to the inch of their lives, all within the same day. Canelo could probably do it too. It would just be bad. Like, it'd be like how KSI fought those two guys in the same day. It'd be like that, except they would most likely be left on a stretcher, because this man just put in Artur Beterbiev, or some people call him Artur Beterbiev or Artur Beterbiev. I'm not 100% sure the right pronunciation of his name, but this guy's a fucking monster. He really is. Like, he gets in the ring, dudes be bloodied up. Yeah, it's so nasty watching him fight. He's ruthless. Like Canelo, he'll hit you in the arms, he'll hit you in the hips, he'll break you down, and then once you put your hands down, he'll knock you out, and then you'll be knocked out. And then you'll get up and you're like, dang, I got knocked out. I look stupid. Artur Beterbiev is going to break your ribs. He's going to break your eye socket. He's going to put gashes in you, have you bleeding everywhere. He's nobody to fuck with at all. And David Benavidez too. He'll beat the hell out of you too, just with crazy combinations. I don't think that he's as destructive as Arthur Beterbiev, but goddamn, like he'll really. David Benavidez will fuck you up. Canelo, he'll knock you out. If I was to get in a fight with any of those guys, because I knew I would lose to any of them, and I was gonna get paid the same amount of money, I would literally get in there with Canelo, because at least with Canelo it'll be a clean knockout. Like it's just one little clean knockout. I get hit, boom, go straight to sleep, wake up, collect $10 million or whatever I would get paid for that. But what fucking Arthur Beterbiev, bro, he's gonna start hitting you. Oh my god, he'll hit you to the body, bro. I've seen him like punch dudes. They'll be like a little bit dazed, and he'll like intentionally uppercut them so that their body comes back up, and he just starts hitting them some more. And freaking David Benavidez, he'll just throw like crazy combinations at you, and they're like super quick, super hard, super sharp. I'd rather just get hit once and go down and just get the fuck beat out of me and end up in the hospital. But with that being said, I want to get to my prediction, because I've been talking for 10 minutes about just random shit. I just want to get to the prediction. My prediction for this fight, just because, like I said, Jake Paul's in a precarious situation where he has to step up in competition. So he can't fight someone who's like a real boxer just because he's not that talented. He's not on that level. Maybe one day he could be, because he does train incredibly hard. He just hasn't had that many fights. So if he got in there with someone like Hasim Rahman Jr., like he was using his name for clout, and I think part of him really thought he could beat Hasim Rahman Jr. until the boxing minds and even the boxing commission was all like, are you sure you want to fight this dude? You don't have any physical advantage over him. He's bigger than you. He's stronger than you. He's more skilled than you. He's more talented than you. Are you sure? He's and more experienced. It's like, are you sure you want to do this? And he was like, nah. So he put in that BS, like it was good that then he put in like those rehydration clauses and all this stuff, and then he stopped the fight because he didn't make weight way before, in which anyone who knows about boxing knew that he definitely had enough time to get down to 200 pounds before that fight. Jake Paul just needed an excuse to avoid the ass whooping, because like I said, he can only be that big of an asshole while he's winning. But where I think that he messed up is he chose the wrong opponent. So a lot of people probably don't follow Anderson Silva like that if they're into boxing, and then there's people who just like Jake Paul who don't really follow boxing like that. But essentially he's fighting Anderson Silva, who's just like a legendary MMA fighter, legendary, very fluid fighting style, a Brazilian. He's just an incredible fighter who's also a very good striker. And typically, being a really good striker in the UFC doesn't always translate to being a good striker in boxing, but Anderson Silva's fight IQ is so high, and he does have some experience fighting in boxing, even though he lost, but that was like way back when I was a baby, maybe even before I was born, because I was born in 93. It's just that his IQ and his like physical IQ, like the way he moves his body, the way that he can pretty much adapt to different fighting styles, is so good that even without adequate training to just specifically be confined in the sport of boxing, and even being like 41, 42 years old, and being only like 60% of his natural athleticism still there, I still think that he has what it takes to beat Jake Paul, because Jake Paul's fighting style is very, very, very simple. He has very basic footwork. He often throws, a jab 1-2 combination. That seems to be his favorite combination. He often throws like a pretty okay, like pretty standard punch, jab to the body. But the problem with his technique is, like, even though it's standard, even though it's very unorthodox, and it's pretty good for someone who's been boxing for as long as he's been boxing, because he has like some great boxing minds and he takes the sport very, very seriously, it's still mediocre. It's still very sloppy. He still swings very widely. He still leaves himself susceptible to counters. He still throws uppercuts from way too far back, and you can't do shit like that against Anderson Silva, even in a boxing match. You even saw that when he fought Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., who is the son of Julio Cesar Chavez Sr., a man who has had a lot of professional fights. He was never the greatest fighter. He didn't have his dad's grit. He didn't have his dad's talent. And honestly, he just didn't have his dad's passion for the sport. He was pretty much doing it just because, in my opinion, this is what I get the vibe. He was just doing it just because his dad was a fighter, so he also became a fighter. But Anderson Silva was pretty much able to outbox him as well, just because Anderson Silva, even when he translates his very fluid, very he has a beautiful fighting style. Even when he translates that to boxing, and it looks very unorthodox, and it looks very kind of wild a little bit, because he does a lot of stuff that a more orthodox, a more traditional boxer wouldn't do. The basic principles are still there, and his defense and head movement and just natural reflexes are also still there, even though that they're like a very slowed down version of what he was in his prime. And I know a lot of kids watch Jake Paul, but if just go look at Anderson Silva in his prime, there would be times when men would literally be punching at him, and he would just dodge all the punches. Like, he was kind of like Pernell Whitaker in the UFC. If you don't know who Pernell Whitaker is because you're a Jake Paul person and you don't really watch boxing, then just look up Pernell Whitaker. Just watch his highlights. They're incredible. But yeah, I just think that he chose the wrong person, because he always had the advantage in size. He always had the advantage in reach. He always had the advantage in experience against all the fighters who he fought. Just because, saying that someone who's good at UFC is also going to be good in boxing is like saying that someone who is good at really good at Call of Duty will be also really, really good at Battlefield, or really, really good at Halo. You can't take a professional Call of Duty player and then just throw them in there with other professional or guys who've been playing Halo for years and then expect them to just beat them, even though the games are very similar. I guess that's the only way that I can explain it in a way that a little 13-year-old kid would understand. But yeah, I think that he's just at this crossroads where if he does get beat, he's going to be a huge meme. He's already losing a big portion of his fan base just due to age. He may have to reinvent himself. But if he does win, then the money train just keeps rolling. The money train just keeps rolling. And and his biggest asset is also, he has a pretty strong, powerful right hand, to where if you get hit clean with it, it can knock you out. But I just don't think that he has the stamina, the skills, and the boxing IQ to land it clean on Anderson Silva. God, I'm tired. On Anderson Silva. So it's just gonna be different. It's just gonna be an uphill battle to try to do that. I don't know. But also, I think that it's kind of I think the UFC guys are kind of nervous, just because when it comes down to it, I shouldn't have to tell you this. Most people should already know this, but most people who are casually into combat sports are extremely fucking stupid. So they'll see someone like a Jake Paul beat someone like Tyron Woodley, and they'll really put down the UFC and think that because they built these idea in their heads that these UFC fighters are just these multifaceted fighters who can win in every discipline just because it's mixed martial arts. So if you take Tyron Woodley and put him in a boxing match, he should be able to beat a novice at boxing. If you take him and put him in a karate match, he should be able to beat a novice at karate. But it's just not the case. So then when they see a guy who's basically a boxing novice or a boxing intermediate beat a guy like that, they pretty much put down the whole UFC, which is ignorant as fuck because they don't know any better. It's the same way when Floyd Mayweather was fighting not Logan Paul, but when he was fighting Conor McGregor, and there were so many dumbass people making these dumbass takes about, oh, Conor McGregor, he's gonna, if he lends that left hand, he's gonna spark him. I was all like, if all you needed was a decent left hand to beat fucking Floyd Mayweather, even an old dusty Floyd Mayweather, who's only at like I said, 60% of his natural athleticism, and who's had plenty of hand injuries. If all you needed was a decent left hand to beat him, he would have lost a long time ago. If Manny Pacquiao, also a southpaw, didn't beat him, then what the fuck chance do you think Conor McGregor had? And there were people who were literally betting actual money, taking their money, hard-earned money, and betting it on Conor McGregor. And then people who were so disappointed and crying and all this stuff, talking about Conor McGregor was just doing this for a paycheck. Yeah, he was doing it for a paycheck. He had about the same fucking chance of beating Floyd Mayweather in a fight as freaking I had a chance of beating LeBron James in basketball. It just wasn't going to happen. It was ignorant to think it was going to happen. But I don't know. It just is what it is. But yeah, if he does get sparked out, which he can, you know, if he gets caught with something, I don't think he will. But if he does, it's going to look really bad on the UFC because there's going to be a whole bunch of dumbass people who don't fucking know any better, making a whole bunch of dumbass takes, mostly children, and really kind of like devaluing what the hard work that the guys in the UFC do. But it just is what it is, because the majority, 99% of those UFC guys aren't going to beat any boxer within like the top 20 in a weight class, and 99% of the boxers in the top 20 in the weight class aren't going to beat any of the fighters in the UFC. That's just how it goes. It's two different disciplines. Two very different disciplines, two very different sets of rules, two very different skill sets, and it's a very specialized skill set. But I do think that if Anderson Silva is kind of the exception, because I feel like if Anderson Silva was younger, with his IQ, with his natural talent, with his natural reflexes, he probably could have been a great boxer if he really set that as his discipline. Even though he he tried it when he was younger and it kind of didn't go the way, if he had stuck with it, he could have been talented. I really do believe that, but that's not what he stuck with. But I do think he at least has the talent to beat up Jake Paul. So I expect him to go in there, you know, establish his jab. Jake Paul's going to get frustrated. He'll keep establishing his jab. The more Jake Paul gets frustrated, the more Jake Paul tries to sell out, the more he opens up, the more Anderson Silva is going to be able to hit him. And if Anderson Silva doesn't get sparked out by Jake Paul, then he's pretty much just going to box the fuck out of Jake Paul and kind of do him how he did to Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., but do it worse, because, you know, even though Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. isn't the best fighter, he's better than Jake Paul, you know. But like I said, it's just Jake Paul's at this crossroads, because if he does lose to Anderson Silva, he's going to have to kind of reinvent his stuff a little bit, because people are preying on his downfall because he went full asshole. And ask Conor McGregor, ask Ronda Rousey, ask Floyd Mayweather. Floyd Mayweather is very cognizant of the fact that the second he loses, people are going to jump down his throat and start just like treating him like shit, you know, because they're waiting on him. Because when you go full asshole and you're already, people are just waiting on your downfall. They really are. And like I said, unless your fan base is children, which his fan base is getting older, unless you keep winning or you attach yourself to some type of political ideology, then it's a wrap, you know. Because even his viewership on YouTube has gone down. Like he's saying a lot of stuff, and he does things and doesn't even get the views it used to, just because, you know, he's an asshole and his fan base is getting older. Kind of like Leafy is Here. There's a YouTuber called Leafy is Here, and there's also a YouTuber called Rice Gum that I used to see when I was younger. They ain't doing so good no more, because they went full asshole. And as their fan bases got older, and as they got older, those same ignorant kids who were watching them grew up, and a new batch of ignorant kids didn't want to see them. They wanted to see a fresh face who was a little bit younger be an asshole on the internet. But like I said, you know, even if he doesn't bounce back from it, it's not really going to affect him that much, just because he's made so much money to this point. If he even halfway invested it in any type of decent way, he's good for the rest of his life. So it's not something that he should be like too worried about. But it's going to affect him negatively, because I think he's so far gone that even if he does make a switch, even if he does become more humble, even if he does become more of a decent human being, well, at least in the public image, I don't know what he's like in his private life, people are just going to see it as disingenuous. See, his brother Logan, who is much more charismatic, much more thoughtful, in my opinion, much more entertaining, never went full asshole. He would say things, but you knew it was for entertainment. He always showed respect to his opponents who he was boxing. He even became friends with KSI, started a business with them, and like made a huge global fucking beverage brand, which is exactly what he should have done. And he's making more diverse content than Jake Paul. So, like I said, Jake Paul really, 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 really needs this fight. And then Anderson Silva, he needs to win it too, because he doesn't want to have that stain on his legacy with these dumbass people like diminishing everything that he did just because he got caught with a pretty good right hand from a intermediate to novice boxer. You know, well, he's past the point of being a novice, an intermediate boxer. I'll give Jake Paul that, an intermediate boxer with pretty good hand power, with pretty good punching power. You know. And you see a lot of those, from Blair Cobbs to so Blair Cobbs is one of them, Rolly Romero is one of them, Deontay Wilder for one of them. You know, you see a lot of boxers who may not have the best technique, but you know, they got punching power. But I just don't think that he's as talented as any of those guys I just named. Not even a little bit. I really don't see it, because once he gets in there with somebody else who can crack, it's going to be a wrap. Or once he gets in there with somebody else who like really has a lot of boxing skill, it's really going to be a wrap, because he struggled with Tyron Woodley, and Tyron Woodley was running around with the freaking crossing his legs while he was fighting, you know what, which if you're not familiar with boxing, it's kind of hard to explain, but and he had this really wide open stance like he was preparing for someone to tackle him or something. You know, Tyron Woodley had a lot of issues with the way he was fighting, just because, you know, he grew up in the discipline. So it's kind of like if I were to learn Spanish, I would first have to unlearn all of the preconceived and muscle memory from English in order to like speak with a proper Spanish accent. And that's kind of how Tyron Woodley was. He was so immersed in the UFC mixed martial arts scene that when he switched over to boxing, that he still had a big... you could tell he was just a UFC fighter. The same way you could tell people who only play football, and when they play basketball, you're like, oh, this is just he's athletic, but this is just a basketball player. This is just a football player playing basketball. You could tell. But like I said, you know, Anderson Silva is just much more talented. He's just much smarter. He'll be able to transition better, and he's already proven that he was able to transition better in the Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. fight. But I'm tired, you know. And that's really all I got to say about that. I know I repeat it a lot. Like I said, I'm not really going to edit this video. Just going to post it on my YouTube channel. And that's all I got to say about that. You know, be blessed. Peace.